Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to Synchronicity Web TV. I am your host, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. Well, I'm really happy and excited and grateful to celebrate with you today, Seoul Jonassen. Now, Seoul is truly very bright, just like her name, like the sun. She's an evolutionary astrologer. She's been practicing for over 2 decades. And I have worked with her before. I've seen her genius in action. And now she is going to be bringing her skills as an amazing astrologer to Synchronicity University, and I couldn't be happier. Seoul is going to be part of the January 2022 speaker series at Synchronicity University. And until the end of December 2021, you can choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class. Now, Seoul is going to be talking about something that is very timely that I know so many people out there want to know about, which is the nodes changing signs. And so the nodes are going to be changing signs this January, and just in time for that, Seoul is going to be talking about that during the talk itself with Synchronicity University, but also here today as well. So welcome, Seoul. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Nadiya. It's a pleasure to be here with you again.
Well, you know, I just love hanging out with you. I love talking to you. You're just such a great astrologer. So I'm really, really glad that you're going to be joining Synchronicity University. So let me ask you, before we jump into the nodes and what's going on there, can you give us a little bit of background? Like, I don't want to say, how did you get into astrology? Because I know everybody asks that, but let me say, why do you love astrology? Because obviously you love it. You've been an astrologer for over 2 decades now. Why do you love it?
I just fell in love with it. I rather want to say that. And I keep falling in love with it. Every time I go into this, we go into a wormhole of thoughts and one thing leads to the other. It's almost like being a detective. And then you get to an understanding, which is my thing. You're like the mind opens and you just see it. That's when I fall in love. It's the beautiful mind, in a way, of astrology that I love. And it just makes so much sense. So I keep falling in love with it and I can't get rid of it. It's like, it's that thing that keeps coming back to me. It's like, sometimes I go through periods where I'm like, okay, gets a little bit too much. You think about astrology all the time, you feel a little crazy after a while. So I distance myself and I go into art or something else that I really love to do as well. But then it just keeps coming back. It's like, knock, knock, hello, it's astrology again. And there it is. So it's always returning. That's love.
It is, isn't it? And I was saying to you just before we started recording is that I just feel like the times I've interacted with you and even now, like your spiritual energy, your spiritual awareness is so strong. And I know that you're an evolutionary astrologer, which does put a spiritual awareness or growth at the forefront. And so how does that connect with you? Like being somebody who's aware of the spiritual journey, and also an astrologer as well. How does that connection happen for you?
For me, these two always coexisted very well together. And I actually started exploring evolutionary astrology because I was looking for information on the nodes. And I was at my nodal return around that time. So it was the first nodal return happens around 18. And that's when I really started to get into the, questions about the nodal axis, because I have such a potent nodal axis in my natal chart. It was a very obvious thing to study. And it led me through to evolutionary astrology, in particular, the Pluto book of Jeffrey Wolf Green, which was the first one that I got hand of. So that started and opened up a long journey that begs a few questions. There's some questions you have to figure out, like what is karma and reincarnation, and a lot of these more oriental questions that are more present in evolutionary astrology than anything else. And parallel to that, I met my first meditation teacher, and that really opened up this multidimensional search that I've been on since, to understand. I just want to understand, I just want to know, what does it mean to be human in its real full, expression? What is life? Mm.
Yeah, and it's interesting because just earlier today I was saying to somebody, I think it was Socrates who said the unexamined life is not worth living.
Oh,
And when,
yeah.
no, was it Socrates or Plato? It was one of the two. Yes. But, and look, Plato was a student of Socrates. So even if Plato said it, he got it from Socrates. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because astrology is a very powerful way in which to examine one's life, examine one's spiritual life as well.
Mm.
But it is the intention that we bring to it because we are spiritual people. I think that's why you're attracted to evolutionary astrology. Someone else with a different intention might like a different astrology, but for you in particular, that spiritual awareness is very much at the forefront.
For me, it's about healing. I use astrology as a tool for healing, and for me, healing is about liberation of the past. Everything in the past is being liberated and transformed. Yeah, because that's, then the body, if you just look at it from the body, then the body is free to breathe in this moment without being constantly pulled magnetically into the past, etc., and so forth. And that's when you can really connect with your soul, and that's when you can really feel your own energy, your power. And that's so important. And especially now that the nodal axis will move into Scorpio and Venus, that is really truly about embodiment and the soul. In evolutionary astrology, we tend to assign the soul to Pluto. I call it more the enzyme of the soul, the one that sort of purifies everything, that is standing in between you and a deeper expression. So when the nodal axis now will go into Scorpio and Taurus, we will have a very powerful energy around the karmic axis. And it will be, a lot of people will really feel, the struggle to get to a place in themselves where they can be more embodied in their expression and feel more empowered in themselves. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
looking at evolutionary times.
And so in evolutionary astrology, the nodes, though, are really important, like, yes, individually, but collectively as well. So, how do you understand the nodes as a symbol in and of themselves?
Well, it's interesting. It's very important to remember that the nodal axis pertains to the moon. The moon is our personal satellite. It is very Earth oriented. It's ours. It's our moon, and that ties in the moon, the sun, and Earth very much in the nodal axis, which is why it has to do with a lot of group consciousness. It has to do with the past. It ties in the moon. It also explains why it's so powerful, because it relates to the magnetic field of Earth itself in a much stronger proximity, and very much aligned with the moon. So it's where the eclipses happen, so it's really a lot about our personal, individual evolutionary journey in this lifetime, and therefore it becomes almost like the red thread through a chart. It's, for me, it's the spine in a way. It's just everything is connected into that karmic thread, of course, because nothing in your life is coincidental. It all makes sense from a deeper perspective, and it makes sense in terms of your own personal destiny on Earth. So for me, it's so essential. And collectively, when we talk about it collectively, the lunar nodes activates this powerful magnetic field between the past and the future. So everything that is connected through the nodal axis is being accentuated. It takes on so much power. And we saw that now. We are recently coming out of a few days with Mars on the South Node. It's been a little feisty out there, to be quite honest. I've I think I ran into a few frustrated people, and this Martian energy is really strong now. You can really feel it. So it's like the nodal axis is really pulling down into our own personal magnetic field, whatever is going on around it. So that's why it's so important for us. And I think that's why, evolutionary astrology in particular has a whole body of knowledge around what the nodal axis is doing. It's also something you find a lot in Indian astrology. They call it Rahu and Ketu. And it's, if if you're into evolution, and I don't know who's not, then it becomes a very important vital point in your chart to figure out.
And I know that the nodes right now are like sort of finishing up a transit through the Gemini-Sagittarius axis. So how can we now, in retrospect, understand what was revealed for us here, and how it is that we evolved personally, but certainly collectively, over the course of this last year and a half or so, with the nodes moving through that Gemini-Sagittarius axis? Have you reflected on it? Like what has shown up? Oh, yes, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. We're in this mutable energy field. Neptune is in Pisces, and we have all this mutation. I think mutation was one of the hit words in the collective while during this transit. Mutate, mutate. Oh, it's changing. Now it's changing. It's changing again. It's just, oh, dear Lord, it's changing again. Now what, like we wake up to new rules every day, and that's not just, Saturn is in Aquarius and we have all these restrictions all the time, but the mutations are what's going on in a mutable nodal axis. The south node, which is very interesting because that's a point of purification. This is where the energy gets purified. So wherever the south node is, it's bringing in a very subconscious, unconscious kind of vibe. It's that place what needs to get, we need to kind of purify it to take it to a higher expression, because you have these subconscious expression in each sign. So you also have these superconscious expressions in each sign. And between there's like a whole spectrum going on. So within that spectrum, I would say when the south node is activated, you get a really subconscious energy of that sign coming through. And in this case, it was Sagittarius. And I must say, and I'm probably one of them too, there's been a lot of opinions out there. People are now currently experts in things they weren't experts in before because of this condition that we've been through globally with the COVID and everything. So we meet a lot of dualism in Sagittarius when it's on a very low expression, because my opinion, my subjective opinion, I'm right, you're wrong, you get these ideological clashes. And that's what's been frustrating for a lot of people the last 18 months, is that families have been broken because of disagreements, and people have been fighting about everything. It's like, because they want to be right instead of wanting to be one, if you know what I mean. And the North Node in Gemini showed us that we are relatively, we are relative to each other. That's what we have to understand. My consciousness is relative to other people's consciousness and awareness, and sometimes it's a mismatch. And we won't find the right words to communicate beyond that mismatch. But if we put some willingness behind it, we could. We could. What do you mean by those words? What do you, like really like the art of communication, it was, and is what comes through in Gemini, and the building of bridges. So that's what's been going on. I don't know if we succeeded or not, but there's still, there is a lot of learning happening, at least, we're, we're learning a lot.
Yeah, we're learning to talk to each other. We're learning to communicate with each other. That's the North Node in Gemini. But our impulse has been to do what we can to feel like we're right, or to turn an opinion into a fact in some way. But the invitation is there to listen to each other, to talk to each other. One question that I know some students out there are going to ask as well, because the class is going to have this variety. It's going to have people who are absolutely newbies, completely beginning, and also students who maybe have been coming to Synchronicity University for the last few years. So they've taken some classes, they're familiar with some language. I know that with the nodes, because you already explained what the nodes represent, but the nodes, there's like the true node and the mean node. And so how do you understand the difference between them, and which do you prefer?
Well, I use the true nodes, and I think that's more or less the default, actually, because it really is an observation of the true motion of the nodes. It includes, a direct period in the nodal transits, so it's moving a little bit. Normally it moves retrograde, through the zodiac. That's what it spends the most time doing, but occasionally it stops and it sort of like zooms in on a little degree, and it goes a little like this, like. So for me it makes sense, because that would be in terms of how I understand evolution. It's 2 steps forward and then 1 step back, 2 steps forward. That's organic for me. It's how to kind of like understand evolution, being more organic about it. So that's why I prefer using the true nodes. And yes, so that dance of growth is what inspires and it inspires a lot of my thinking and my teaching in astrology, actually, because it's the underlying dimension of life. We cannot escape evolution. It's impossible. People tried. Didn't work.
Oh, yes, I know.
Yeah.
Look, I think as human beings, and especially you and I both are Aquarians, and even though we thrive on change, we are fixed signs. And so earlier, so earlier Soul was talking about all this mutable energy we're coming out of. And that's because the signs are divided into modalities. And so some signs are cardinal in that they start a season. Some signs are fixed in that they hold the middle of a season. And then some signs are mutable, which means they're gearing up for the season to change. And that can represent that fluctuation of energy. But yes, Soul and I are both fixed signs. So I get it. We're like very focused. We have that thing in us, but we also thrive on change a lot as well. And we are living in very special times where we're sort of in this time where there's a lot of flux, but also a desire to find something kind of constant, a kernel, some truth. Now, the nodes are going to be moving into fixed signs. So that should be really interesting for all the fixed signs out there, which is not only the Taurus-Scorpio axis, but also the Aquarians and the Leos, but all of us are going to experience this energy. So how do you understand the Scorpio-Taurus axis?
Apart from looking at the nodal axis in general terms, it is a very it's about empowerment. It's about your resources. If you just look at the Taurus part of it, that's about your personal subjective resources. It's your talents. It's what you have already just have inside of you. And Taurus is the farmer. It's the one who comes to the field every day to grow. There's no vacation in farming. You have to be there every day. And that's the kind of fixity that comes in Taurus, this kind of, if you want to grow your talents, you have to be meticulous about it. You have to be consistent with it. You have to go there every day, even though you don't want to sometimes, but you still have to do it. And that kind of harmony that's required in order to get there, because if your mind is full of all worries and struggles, you won't have that kind of energy to kind of like be steady with it. Drama will come. There will be disruption in the flow, disharmony. We've all been in states of disharmony, and we know how that feels. It feels like we are not fertile inside, like the creativity sort of evaporates, and our mind is being sucked up by other problems. So that's why Taurus is a sign of solitude, because it prefers to be alone, because it doesn't want to spend its resources on something that's not worth their time. Like, it's not worth my time, it's just disrupting my harmony so that I cannot be creative with my resources. That's Taurus thinking, and sometimes they have to be alone. So it's a lot about autonomy, about, you know, staying in your own body, being embodied, trusting your body and trusting yourself. So that's one part of it, and it's really you can just sense how empowering that is, you know, when you really start loving yourself and you appreciate yourself and you start appreciating your talents and your gifts, and you're really starting to kind of like get into the abundance, you know, of yourself. Then of course you can't have one without the other, and then here comes Scorpio, and that's the drama, you know, that's the emotional drama that we sometimes just get sucked into by other people. It's like, and there you were, now we have to talk about, you know, the real stuff, you know. And that's sometimes from a Taurus perspective, it could be like, I really don't have the time, you know. But from a Scorpio perspective, this is where the growth happens. This is where you can like really push that limitation and get beyond it. And I need you to get there. You know, like it's a kind of like, I need you thing. So, and since this is the South Node, we're definitely going to look at our addictions with this one, you know. So do you really need that person in order to grow, you know? Are you just using that as an excuse? Are you addicted to this human being or what, you know, or to this substance or to this, whatever it is, that's the object of your desire. This is what I need in order to get to the next step. So both of them pertains to a certain power, but Scorpio needs to empower itself. Everything that goes on in Scorpio is about empowerment. It's about getting stronger. And the modern ruler of Scorpio is Pluto. We always look very closely on the rulers of the nodal axis when we want to understand the nodal axis. And the modern ruler is Pluto. And Pluto, as I mentioned before, is the enzyme for the soul. It's the thing, it's the quality that purifies that which stands in the way for the expression of the soul, because the soul is the only eternal value, if you like. Everything else will, at one point in your life, not be there anymore. Your beauty will change, your money will change, your relationships will change sooner or later, if not by natural, you know, growing apart, then something else happens, because eventually we all have to die. And when we die alone. We don't get our partners with us, you know, it's like we die alone. We meet the creator alone. And that's the core understanding of what is temporary and what is eternal, you know, and soul is eternal. It's your key, it's the key to eternity. So it's the real true power, in a sense. Everything else is temporary. And that's why we sometimes have to deal with a lot of addictions in Scorpio, or what we think we need in order to feel strong. Because Pluto's main mission is to, I think, you know, like remind us that we are souls. And we have power inside of ourselves. So with this nodal axis in particular, I think we're going to look a lot on our own personal, how we abuse our own power, or also, you know, the trust and generosity of other people maybe as well, or how we're being abused and letting ourselves be abused, etc. and so forth. It's very tricky theme, you know, abuse, but it is very important to deal with at this time in our history, because there is so much self-abuse, self-abandonment. Especially the self-abandonment is like extremely for me, it's very visible these days through my clients and in my work in general. I just see it, how people deny themselves the opportunity to listen to their own inner intuition and voice, and actually just listen to themselves and their own bodies. And the Taurus North Node is very much about, embodiment and empowerment that way. Taurus, when it works well, it does not abandon itself. It doesn't. It's loyal to itself. And we can call that selfish, or we can call that being really, really smart and being really, really capable of listening to the body and taking care of its true needs. The body never lies. The mind lies. And that's what we're now moving from, a mind-oriented, more knowledge-oriented kind of nodal axis into a more like soul and body-oriented nodal axis. So healing-wise, I think it can be really good for a lot of people, because they're going to feel super empowered in themselves and learn to listen to their bodies again, and learn to take good, proper care of it, and also be more independent with that. So that's how you can see those signs. But there are so many levels to it. You also have the collective, and we're going to go through that a little bit in the lecture.
The talk,
but
yeah,
but
Uranus,
I think,
yeah.
Oh, there's so much yummy we can talk about.
I know, right? I think it's going to be such an exciting class. And I'm really excited to hear, especially like to know about how Uranus is going to conjunct the North Node and what that's going to mean. And, between you and me, Soul, even though, yes, and YouTube and everybody watching this, my South Node is in Taurus. My North Node is in Scorpio. I'll be having my nodal opposition. And so earlier you spoke about the nodal return, which happens every 18 years or so. We also have the nodal oppositions that happen every 18 years or so as well, and the nodal squares that happen. And so all of these become sort of important turning point moments for a lot of us in our own lives. And so I know and I feel that you are just such a perfect guide for this time. For all of us who have important nodal activity already taking place in the Taurus-Scorpio axis, or elsewhere as well, and for the collective. Just listening to you now, I know that you're going to bring this wonderful perspective, but I know that you always do bring this incredible astrological perspective as well. So I'm so excited about your talk, Soul.
Yeah, me too.
Yay.
I can't wait. It's such a juicy theme,
I know,
it's like,
right?
whoa.
Especially that Scorpio South Node. I mean, you just touched on it right now, but gosh, there are so many layers of understanding of that. I mean, I just think about when Pluto, because you were talking about Pluto as well, when Pluto went through Scorpio, boy, how much deep transformation occurred, how many taboos were right out in the open and changed, how we started talking about things that we never spoke about. It'll be so interesting to see how we as a collective now start doing that as well. And so much more. I mean, all the different ways in which you understand these symbols, I think is going to be so powerful. And so once again, everybody, remember, Soul is going to be part of the January 2022 speaker series at Synchronicity University, alongside other brilliant astrologers as well. And if you sign up before the end of December, you can choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class. And you hear the caliber of astrologer that we have here in Seoul makes it absolutely worth it. Soul, thank you so much for being here today and for giving us this preview and insight into the nodes. I'm so looking forward to your talk.
Me too. Thank you, Nadiya. It was super fun to get my mind going into these areas again, it's my favorite theme. That's for sure, right? The nodal axis, without doubt.
Well, it's obvious. Your passion is there, your love is there, your knowledge is there. It's so obvious.
Wow. Same to you. I mean, you come out with such enthusiasm and love for astrology that it's really,
That's the Sag
everybody,
moon.
Astrology rocks, Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
But it really rocks. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's perfect because,
Yeah.
But
what
it
can
is.
I say? Yeah. I am so Sag moon in that way, yeah. I love it.
Mm.
And I love when I see people who love what they do. Like, to me, that's the best part of this, is like sharing with people, other people who love astrology, who love what they're doing. They make the best teachers.
Yeah, evidently, yeah. Yeah, that's, I can only vouch for that, you know, like from my own upbringing and going to school. It's like the enthusiasts always got their point through. That's for
Oh,
sure.
yes, that's so true,
Mm.
right? Yeah,
Mm.
enthusiasm
Yeah, yeah,
goes
yeah.
a very long way in so many ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again,
Yeah. So
Soul.
yeah.
So appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you everybody for listening. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you during my lecture.
Yes, and thank you again, Soul. And thank you everybody out there for watching. And until we connect again, take care. Bye.